So last week, we'll start with prayer.
It's the new year, Doug. Let's do something different.
Let's start. Father, we just honor your presence here. We ask you to guide us and teach us. We give the Holy Spirit his freedom. So we know that it's you who really brings these words to life. So help us to keep our eyes open so that we really can see what you want us to see and hear what you want us to hear. We give you praise, Father, in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
So Jesus is starting to get an attitude. Because last week he was preaching and the Pharisees were challenging him. So Matthew chapter 12, he gets mad at the Pharisees because they just don't want to believe. They saw miracles happen and they choose to call him the devil. And they said, you're just doing this because the devil's helping you. So he's saying, how am I casting out devils with the devil? That doesn't make any sense. And a house divided against itself won't stand. Then he said, when the unclean spirit has gone out of a man, you know that it wanders around in dry places, because that's how they believe that there were, if you went to the desert, there were demons that would jump on you. Not that that's not true. That's why I don't believe we find it out in the wilderness and crazy places. So, and then he comes back in and brings 7 spirits even worse than himself. And he was trying to say, when I leave Jerusalem, it's going to be dry, and it's going to end up worse than it was in the first place. Don't let the devil distract you from giving the word, and he can wait till after Bible study. Get thee behind me, Olive.
I told you when I came in. I knew it.
See, troublemaker. So he's basically saying, once I leave, this place is going to end up worse. He was just using that person as an example. When the devil leaves, then if you don't put anything good in, then when more devils come in. Because he says, ooh, let me go back to where I was. That was very comfortable. That was very nice. And let me bring my friends. So once I leave, if you don't get the word in you, Jesus is saying, Jerusalem is going to be even worse, which it was, and eventually was destroyed. Then I don't know if you remember, but his brothers and sisters stood outside and said, bring Jesus out here, we want to talk to him. And they were embarrassed by him, and they were trying to silence him. You're bringing like a bad name on our, you're making us look bad, Jesus. Not with his mother, but his brothers. Because there were some of his brothers that were disciples and some of his brothers that were the opposite and really hated Jesus and was trying to get him killed. So that's when he said, my brothers and sisters are those who follow the word. He wasn't trying to put his family out, but he was saying, he was trying to compliment the disciples. Because in those days, your family, and still today, your family inherits everything. And so the disciples are thinking, well, when he comes into his kingdom, his brothers are going to get everything, and they haven't even supported him, and yet they're going to get everything. And that's why Jesus said, no, my brothers and sisters, people who are going to inherit the kingdom are the people who believe the word. So that's how he ended this. And now we're starting chapter 13. And Jesus had been inside of a house. Now he's walking out of a house and is on his way down to the lake, the Sea of Galilee, basically. So all that happened inside in Matthew chapter 12. And now he leaves, goes outside. That's why they said, tell Jesus to come out. So now he's leaving and he is on his way to the Sea of Galilee. So Matthew chapter 13, verses 1 through 3.
On the same day, Jesus went out of the house and sat by the sea. And great multitudes were gathered together to him, so that he got into a boat and sat, and the whole multitude stood on the shore.
So, again, this was we do the opposite today. The class sits, the teacher stands. They did the opposite. Everybody would stand and the teacher would sit. Because you're the wise one and you get to sit and we're the students, so we stand and listen to you. And when it said that Paul learned at the feet of Gamaliel was sitting on a stool and Paul was laying on the floor literally at his feet. So Jesus, being the teacher, he goes and sits in the boat, and they're all going to stand on the shore, and he uses the acoustics to teach them. So since there's a bunch of people, let me get away from all these people, because he's starting to get bugged. So I want to get away. So he's leaving the house, he goes and sits on the Sea of Galilee in a boat, and now he's going to minister. So go ahead, verse 3.
And he spoke many things to them in parables, saying, Behold, the sower went out to sow.
Okay, so now he's deciding to speak in parables. This is when he starts their parables. There's 7 parables that Jesus spoke, 4 of them to everybody, 3 of them to just the disciples. So there's 7 parables. That Matthew records 7 parables, 4 is for everybody, 3 he gives just to the disciples. And he hadn't been speaking in the parable before this time, but I'm saying he's starting to get frustrated because he's telling people the truth, they're not hearing it, they're challenging him. So let me just give you an example. Let me just change my tone. And I'm going to speak you to a parable, and I'm going to give you an example, a story, and maybe this way my truth will penetrate to you. So now he starts to speak in the parable. It says, a sower went out to sow. So they are recognizing this. I was talking to a friend today. The Bible's very repetitive. We think it's 66 different books, and they're all telling different stories. There's like only 4 stories in the Bible. Each author tells those same stories in different ways, but they're just the same stories. So as soon as he's talking about a sower going out to sow and break up the ground, they already go, oh, okay, we've heard this before. But he's going to give it a twist on it. So Hosea talks about a sower. Let's look at Hosea chapter 10, verse 11 through 12.
Ephraim is a trained heifer that loves to thresh grain, but I have harnessed her fair neck. I will make Ephraim pull a plow, Judah shall plow, Jacob shall break his clods. So let's break this down. What? Okay, so Ephraim is like when the 12 tribes of Israel crossed over, you know that a couple didn't go. We used to think everybody crossed over, but there's always a couple people that won't go. So everybody crossed over except for a couple of them. Ephraim went where they're supposed to go. Do you remember who Ephraim's father is? Not that we've ever talked about this. But Joseph had 2 children. So Ephraim. Yes, I'm saying Ephraim. He had 2 children, Ephraim and Manasseh. So they took his place. Since Joseph, it's like he got 2 representatives. Levi, one of the brothers, didn't get any. So there's still 12 places, but Joseph has 2 of them, and Levi doesn't have any. So there's 12 tribes that are represented. Ephraim went and did exactly what God told him to do. He went up north. Judah went south and did exactly what God told him to do. And the other 10 tribes, they didn't. Remember, God said, wherever you step, I'm going to give you this land. Well, you got to step. If you're afraid to step, God can't give you the land. So they never really inherited what was theirs. Ephraim did and Judah did. So there's 2 capitals now. Like San Francisco and Los Angeles. There's the capital in the north, there's the capital in the south. So Ephraim becomes the leader of all the northern 10 tribes. Judah's the leader of the bottom 2. Right? So whenever he's often talking about the northern tribes, and they were rebellious. The south, they weren't as rebellious, but they would rebel every so often. But the 10 tribes, they kind of just did their own thing a lot. So let's look at this. Ephraim. I know. See, it's hard to put up with people. Try to raise them right. Ephraim is like a trained cow that loves to thresh grain. But I harnessed her lovely neck, her fair neck, and I will make Ephraim pull a plow. So Ephraim, now there's a difference. Now when you're pulling the plow, right, you're digging up the ground and the ground is hard. And you're digging up that ground and you're pulling that ground and it's hard to pull the plow, right?
because it's going through that hard ground, it's trying to dig it up. But threshing the grain is you're just walking on top of stuff. So that there were certain cows that got to just thresh the grain, just crush all the corn and stuff like that, turn it into wine and things. That was the easy part. And plus, you weren't supposed to muzzle the ox. Don't put him up. Let him eat free. So the ox would eat and walk and eat and walk, and about half of it got threshed and half it got eaten. So Ephraim is a trained heifer that just loves to thresh the grain, but I'm going to put a harness on her neck and make her pull a plow. So you know what God is saying. You've been getting away with being lazy up there and just doing your own thing. You're just like that trained heifer just walking around doing nothing. But I'm gonna eventually put a harness on your neck and make you do what I want you to do. Take my yoke up on you and learn of me. God's trying to train all of us, right? We want to do our own thing and just take our time. And he's like, no, I'm eventually going to wear you out so that you are forced to listen and do what I tell you to do. So Ephraim is a trained heifer that loves to thresh grain. But I harnessed her fair neck. See, when she wasn't looking, I put a harness on her neck, and I will make Ephraim pull a plow. Judah shall plow, and Jacob's another name for the rebellious people. Remember, Jacob became Israel? You know what I'm talking about? So I'm going to change your name to Israel now that we've wrestled. Okay, I'm going to change your name to Israel. But whenever I call you Jacob, I'm talking about your old you. You know, like how you used to get in trouble when your parents would use your full name.
Okay.
Rebecca Elizabeth Louise, you come in here right now. You know, uh-oh, they use my full name.
Full name.
So, right.
That's scary.
So, whenever you call him Jacob, then they're talking about the rebellious you. So, Jacob's going to plow. Judah's going to plow, and Jacob's going to break his claws. So, there's two things. You're trying to break up the ground, and God's trying to break up the ground in our life. Here, sir. God's trying to, because the ground gets hard, right? He's trying to plant a seed in our heart, which is what we're eventually getting to. A sower went to sow some seed. But before you can sow the seed, you've got to break up the ground so you can sow the seed. Now, is anybody raised on a farm? Or anything like that? Anybody? Okay, so you should be teaching this class. So, because I'm guessing about all this stuff, but you got to break up that ground so you can drop the seeds in. Right. So before the sower can sow, God's saying, here's what I got to do in your life. But there were sometimes clods of dirt, so when the plant would try to grow, it couldn't grow so you got to break up the clods too. Right? So it's saying Jacob will plow, Judah will plow, and Jacob's going to break his claws. Then verse 12. Go ahead.
Sow for yourselves righteousness, reap in mercy, break up your fallow ground, for it is time to seek the Lord, till he comes and brings righteousness on you. So
sow for yourself righteousness, if you're going to sow anything in your life. And whatever you constantly are looking at, thinking about, worrying about, you're sowing that into your life, and you're going to reap. You reap what you sow. So if you're always arguing with people, then people are always going to be yelling at you, back at you. If you smile at a lot of people, they're going to be smiling back at you. At some point, you have to look at your life and say, I am getting what I deserve. Mostly we're horrified. Why is all this happening to me? And I can't understand why people are so upset, and I don't because that's what you put out. You reap what God invented. What goes around comes around.
Is that the same as karma? I don't really know what karma is.
Yes, in Eastern religion we call it karma. But God invented that law because he created the universe. He made, things fall down, they don't fall up. And you get what you put out. So if you're constantly hugging people and loving people, then people will be friendly to you. If you're standoffish, I don't know why nobody ever wants to be around me, because you never want to be around them, and they can tell, So whatever you're putting out comes back to you. That's why he says, sow righteousness. Do good things. Do good deeds. Be helpful to people. And people will help you. Be loving. Have integrity, with honesty, whatever, all these things. Sow righteousness, and you will reap mercy. Break up that fallow ground that's becoming all hard, for it is time to seek the Lord till he comes, and he will rain righteousness on you. So, a sower goes out to sow, and in their mind they're thinking, well, hopefully that ground has been, broken up before that ever happens. Now let's look at Matthew chapter 13, verse 4 through 9. It's very familiar. We're going to look at it slightly differently. Look at it.
And as he sowed, some seed fell by the wayside, and the birds came and devoured them. Some fell on stony places where they did not have much earth, and they immediately sprang up because they had no depth of earth. But then the sun was out. But when the sun was up, they were scorched, and because they had no root, they withered away. And some fell among thorns, and the thorns sprang up and choked them. But others fell on good ground that yielded a crop, some 100-fold, some 60, some 30. He who has ears, let him hear. Let him hear.
Yeah, with ears to hear, let him hear.
Who
Yeah.
has ears to hear.
So let's go through that. Again, we're familiar with this, but let's look at maybe from a different way that we normally look at it. So as he sowed, some seed fell by the wayside, and the birds came and devoured them. So these are the four things that happen when people hear the word of God. There are four things that happen. One, either the seed falls by the wayside. Now, there is the area that is being plowed, right? And then there's the other wayside where people walk that's not been plowed. So some seed falls on ground where there's been no plowing at all, no digging at all. And so it's not able to take any root at all. And as soon the birds come and devour it instantly. So somebody might, I'm on the street corner preaching, repent, turn into, and some of the words that I'm saying are falling along the wayside. People are driving by who there's been no plowing in their life. So immediately the devil says, look at that crazy person preaching that. That's so stupid. And immediately it's devoured. Because there's been zero preparation in that person's life to hear it at all. So sometimes we do this as Christians, we do this as human beings. We waste our time because if there's been no preparation in that life, they can't hear what you're saying. You can go up to somebody, you should, get your life together, you should. And immediately the devil's able to say, they're so stupid. They don't know what they're talking about. Blah, blah, blah. Because it's falling along the wayside. So if there's been zero preparation in that person's life, if there's been zero breaking up of that fallow ground, it just bounces right off and the devil's able to devour it instantly. The second, he says, some fell on stony places where they don't have much earth. So it's a trick. The ground has been plowed up a little bit, but it's maybe like an inch deep. And there's stone right underneath. It looks like it's good ground. It's been broken up. But when the seed starts to grow, now here's what happened. It brings up immediately. And we've seen this. There are people who get saved, who immediately get turned on, and they're doing great. Right? But there's no depth to it. So it says, they didn't have much earth, so they immediately spring up because they have no depth. So because there's no depth, it's able just to grow faster. The seed has to die and take root, and that takes some time. We don't want things to take time. We want everything to be done quickly. But Jesus said, in order for something really to take effect in someone's life, there has to be a death first. So we have to die to those things that we've been holding on to. When we have somebody come to Christ, they got to die to a lot of stuff. We have to die to a lot of things. The seed has to die. If it doesn't die, then the root has to go down deep, and it takes time for it to spring up. So we have to be wary of the people who get saved and instantly we want them to start doing stuff and go here and do this, because now that there's no depth, there hasn't been a depth. There's no depth, and there has not been a depth.
Yeah.
And so, as soon as something happens, they're going to fall away. Because they really didn't die to all that stuff. We're excited. You just got saved last week, and look at you, you're already leading the choir. Well, how long does that ever last? You know what I'm saying? It's exciting to us. They spring up immediately because there's no depth. So they're able to just, but all they're doing is bringing their old self to this. So whatever they were doing out in the world, they just do it right in the church. And God wants a new self. So they're able to immediately become effective, but they haven't really changed. And so as soon as the Bible, so it says, when the sun was up, they become scorched. And because they have no root, they just wither away. As soon as any sort of problem comes up, it's easy for them to fall away because they really had no depth in the first place, right? So as soon as, because if we invite people into the church, come be in the church and God will just take all your problems away. Come to the church and God will just bless you. And so church becomes the magic wand that we tell people God will wave over their life. Come be a Christian and you won't have any problems. You'll get a job, you'll get a house, you'll get 2 cars, your wife will come back, and this will happen, and all this stuff, all this stuff will be, what a great life God will give you. Yay! But as soon as, my wife didn't come back. Wait, my car broke down. I lost my job. Psst, forget this Jesus thing, and then they leave. Right? So, when the sun is going to rise up. If you've had a root, if something's been deep, then the sun blesses you. But if it's not been planted deep, the sun scorches you. So certain things happen in life that make us stronger. We have more faith now. Yeah, my auntie got sick, and I was afraid, and we were praying, and God healed her, and now I have a stronger faith in God, as opposed to, why did you let my auntie get sick? I'm out of here, right? The same thing happens, but you interpret it one way if you're really deeply rooted in God, and you interpret it a totally different way if there's no depth to your Christianity. So the sun is going to shine no matter what, and how it affects us depends on how deeply rooted you are in Christ. Yes.
Would that also apply to the person itself who is anxious to get started without, I got it. For the first 5 minutes and they don't really have it.
They don't really have it, right?
Okay.
And he's saying, so when the sun comes up, so when the sun was up, they were scorched. And that's not we want our plants to get sun. But not if there's no depth. The water dries up immediately and they wither when the sun makes them wither. But if they've been planted well, then the sun actually gives them life. They're able to pull life from what just happened. So the sun's always going to shine. I always give the example. So this is the 107th time, I apologize. But you got clay and you got wax. The sun shines, it melts the wax, it hardens the clay. But the sun's doing the same thing. The sun's not mad at the clay. I'm hard at clay. The quality is in the individual. Is your heart wax so that God melts, or is your heart clay? And so the same thing happens. It's the same sun doing the same thing. But it depends on the quality of our heart, how we respond to the situation. So because they have no depth, the seed, they grow up fast, but when the sun comes, they get scorched and withered. And so we can expect the sun to shine in our lives, but if we are planted and rooted in Him, it's a good thing. If we aren't, it's a bad thing. So there's the people who fall on the wayside and weren't prepared at all for the word. Then there are people who get planted, but it's not deep enough. Then it says, number 7, some fell among thorns. Are there any questions? Some fell among thorns, and the thorns sprang up and choked them. So, in this situation, the thorns and the weeds grow up together. They look similar. But the thorns begin to steal the water from the plant. And so the plant starts to wither, and then they go up taller than the plant and block the sun from it. And that also chokes them. It chokes them. So it's not like the thorns are literally choking the plant. So you can have thorn people in your life that start pulling all the water away from you, right? And you're growing it together and everything is cool, but their neediness or their anger or their rips the moisture from you, and they can block the sun. And so that causes us to die. We have to get rid of the thorns in our lives.
Like those people that zap your energy?
Yes.
Right, okay.
Yeah. They're not a blessing. Some people are a blessing in your life. They bring you something, and other people drain you. And that's what the thorns do to the weeds. And so the word is planted, but the thorns are there also. And again, they will block you from your blessing.
So they're parasites.
Right. So you have to recognize them. Now, I'm not saying you can't be around needy people. If God is sending you to someone in need, He gives you the energy to help them.
Right.
It's not a burden. It's like, no, it's not a problem. Helping, right? But there are other people that are draining from you, and God's not going to rescue you from them because you're supposed to get rid of them.
Get rooted.
That thorn in your life. Right, so that you can grow, and then later you'll be a blessing to that person. But as long as the thorns are there growing up with you at the same time, they're just going to, they demand more moisture than the plant. And so you get drained and you're not getting the nourishment that you're needing. It's going to that person or that thing in your life that's draining you. So some falls among thorns, but others fall on good ground that has been broken up and it's been allowed to go deep. And they actually yield a crop that, and some it could be 100-fold, 60-fold, 30-fold, whatever the bountifulness is. It's good ground where we've taken the time, and we don't want to take the time. So some things just take time, and we want them too quickly. We want them too quickly. We want the church to grow. But we still have to take the time with the people who are here to make sure everybody's trained, that we've rooted out all the thorns, that things are going deep. You have to make sure so that when it grows, it'll finally grow. God's not in a hurry. But they used to take time breaking up the fallow ground and rooting things out and trying to get rid of the weeds, and so that when you put the seed in, it can grow up. But if we just plant the seed, we're going to get shallow Christians or you're just gonna get the thorn Christians, but you're just not gonna get the crop that you're supposed to get. So Jesus is speaking into a parable about a sower, and so the disciples need to know, why are you used to speak directly to us, so why are you now telling stories? Because he's changed his style. Because when he was directly speaking, the Pharisees came and said, "You're the devil." So in Matthew, we're good? Any question? So in Matthew chapter 13, verse 10.
And the disciples came and said to him, "Why do you speak to them in parables?" He answered and said to them, "Because it has been given to you to know the mysteries of the kingdom of heaven, but to them it has not been given."
So I'm speaking in parables because they're not going to get it because they don't want to get it. You're the people who have devoted yourself to me. You're following me. You're going to give up your life for me. They're just here because they got fed on the mountain. They're here because they saw that miracle over there and they got all excited about it. So they're not going to ever get the deeper things of God, they're not going to get it. So I want them to hear it so they can't say they never heard. But they're not going to totally ever really understand what these mysteries are. So they need you to understand the mysteries. Now there are three main mysteries in the New Testament. So we'll look at these three mysteries. Paul's writing to the Ephesians. Ephesians chapter 3, verse 3 through 6, and then I skip to verse 10. Sorry.
As I briefly wrote earlier, I'm reading out my Bible. As I briefly wrote earlier, God himself revealed his mysterious plan to me. For as you read what I have written, you will understand my insight into the plan regarding Christ. 5. God did not reveal it to previous generations, but now by his Spirit, he has revealed it only to his holy apostles and prophets.
So previous generations didn't get this. God didn't reveal it. He said it, but he didn't reveal what it meant. God tells you things. God tells you things, but he waits for a time period before he actually tells you what that means. It's folly when we run off and think we know. Then we're the plant that didn't go deep. It just springs up. So God tells us stuff, but he purposely couches it in mystery, and he's going to tell us why in a minute. But he's saying, you know, that person's going to have an effect on your life. Ooh, that person's going to give me $1,000. No, that's not the effect they're going to have. I said they're going to have an effect in your life. You looked at what you needed right now and thought, oh, that's the person. And so you were paying around and waiting to give you some money. And that's not what the effect is. But I can't tell you now because you're not able to handle it. But 10 years from now, I'll reveal it to you. And you go, oh, they're the one who is going to correct me in that part of my life. You know, whatever it is. So God tells us stuff, but then he later reveals the meaning. So as you read, in generations past, it's not like he didn't tell them. He just didn't explain what he meant by it. And now, you're the generations that mature enough to understand these mysteries. So Paul says, now I get all this stuff in the Old Testament. I didn't get it before. All these prophecies and all these things. Now I get it. Because he's now revealed it to us. So here's one of the first things. Verse 6.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
The word knowledge, does it mean my spirit, or my will?
No, so if you're talking about verse 4 in the King James, by which when you read, you may understand my knowledge in the mystery of Christ. Paul understood things and he started preaching things to people. He had a wealth of knowledge that he had, where it had been revealed to him what certain things meant. So Paul was preaching, like to them they thought it was new. Like, what are you preaching, Paul? I've never heard this before. He says, I want you to understand my knowledge. I want you to understand what I've now learned by reading the scriptures. Because when Paul went off for 7 years or something, I don't know, Joey always knows better than me. For how many years did Paul went off before he came back? You know, when he first got saved, he was just reading the Bible, and God was talking to him. We wouldn't have allowed that. We would have said, no, you got to be a deacon tomorrow. We need you next Sunday. So you can't get saved to go off for 7 years and learn about the Lord. You're ready to, you know, you're a male and you're in a church. And if you can fit into a suit, it's time for you to go out and visit the Lord. So, but Paul went off and he got a bank of knowledge and now he's sharing it to them. So here's the first mystery in verse 6.
And this is God's plan. Both Gentiles and Jews who believe the good news share equally the riches inherited by God's children.
Okay, so that the Gentiles get to be fellow. This was brand new. The Jews knew you were the chosen people. We're the chosen people. God, you know, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, he told us to kill the Hittites and the Amorites, and God hates everybody else. He loves us. Here's a secret. You're going to be fellow heirs. Even though God has spent all this time, he's just about to go and start preaching to the Gentiles, which he had not done before. But now it was time. And so that, even though he always talked about, and I will bring in the nations, and he shall be assigned to the nations, they went, yeah. but they have their own interpretation. We do that constantly. God will say something to us and we put our own interpretation on it. And so, here's a mystery. You guys get to be fellow, like, no, that's not fair. All the stuff we've been through, and the Babylonians captured us, and they get to share with us, that made no sense to them. So that was the first mystery, that you're going to be fellow heirs. Here's why it was kept secret. Verse 10.
I didn't think
Let's-
you did.
What? You didn't finish 6?
Oh, no.
Oh, go ahead.
It says, both are a part of the same body and both enjoy the promise of the blessings because they both belong to Jesus Christ.
Right, they're both partakers of this promise in Christ through the gospel. So we're going to get the same blessings, even though we were adopted. We're just adopted. We're foster kids. We still get we're going to get the same thing that the Jews got. And it's like, what? How's that possible?
Yeah.
Verse 10. Here's why I kept it a secret.
God's promising, God's purpose in all of this was to use the church to display its wisdom and its rich variety to all those unseen rulers and authorities in heavenly places.
Right. So someone read the King James version of that, verse 5 to 10. To the intent. Go
To
ahead.
the intent that now the manifold wisdom of God might be made known by the church to the principalities and powers in the heavenly places.
So, the principalities and powers, who's he talking about? The principalities and powers in heavenly places. What do you think?
Who's he talking?
Who are the principalities and powers in heavenly places?
The demonic spirits that
Demonic spirits or the...
Yes.
Okay.
Don't change it. When you say we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against powers and principalities, you know what it is then.
Yeah, sure.
This is still Ephesians. This is just Ephesians 3. In Ephesians 6, he said the same thing. We don't wrestle against flesh and blood, we wrestle against principalities and powers in heavenly places. Well, that's demons. He said, now the demons get to know what's going on. I kept it from them. Because they would have tried to kill the Gentiles. So, to the intent that now that Jesus Christ has come, remember Jesus says, now the God of this world has been judged. Now that I'm getting on the cross, it's done, it's finished. When he says it's finished, like, it's over, I just won. Ha-ha. The devil put me on the cross and he doesn't know that that's exactly what God wanted. And now I've won because I completed the covenant. So now the Gentiles get to have all the same things that the Jews had. Now it's open to everybody. It has nothing to do with blood now. It has to do with belief. So now you get saved by faith. So anybody can have the riches of Christ now. He wouldn't have ever let you get on the cross. If the devil had known, he'd been the one, no, get him on the cross. But now, so this wisdom is now can be known to the demons and devils. Guess what? All these people can cast you out now. Everybody can do what I did. When Jesus was on the earth, now everybody can do those works. So the devil, you're in trouble now. Because any believer can go up to anybody and say, come on to him. So we all have access to God's riches, his wisdom, what to do and when to go and where to, everybody, it's like a bomb just went off all over the world and now everybody gets it. So he was hiding it from the devil. And now, like I'm serious when I say the devil shows up when I'm teaching the Revelation, not just me. Because he doesn't get it either. Like, oh, you got some insight? Because he doesn't know, he doesn't understand, and so the devil didn't know any better, and now he does. What's actually going on? Okay, here's another mystery. Romans chapter 11, verse 25 to 27.
For I do not desire, brethren, that you should be ignorant of this mystery, lest you should be wise in your own opinion, that blindness in part has happened to Israel until the fullness of the Gentiles is come in.
So here's another mystery. So now Israel's going to be blind for how long? For how long? Anybody? How long is Israel going to be blind? Until the
fullness of the Gentiles.
right. So, because that's what you get for reading
I was
more modern
writing.
translation.
I
Okay.
was writing.
Read this King James. So here's another mystery. Blindness, well, Israel's going to be blind for a time being, for a time, until the fullness of the Gentiles, until this word is gone all over the world and all the Gentiles who are going to be saved have been saved. This dovetails with what we're learning in Revelations on Sunday. At a certain point, the last Gentile is going to get saved. Jesus is going to show up. And then Israel's going to go, oh, and then they're going to get saved. Oh, that Jesus. Oh, okay, now I know who he is. So he's keeping, so they're going to remain blind. Now again, the sun shines, and people who love the sun, like if you've ever been sick sometimes, you need to go out in the sun and get you some sun. It's good for you, right? But if you look directly at it, something you can get blinded. So they've been blinded by the sun for a time period, and then eventually you know how the white goes away and now you can see again. So blindness in part has come. The sun of righteousness has shown up. Israel's blind for a time period. And that blindness is going to stay there because they didn't look at the sun correctly. And until the fullness of the Gentiles. So that's the second mystery. One is Gentiles get to get saved too. And the second mystery is, and this is how long Israel's going to be blind. However, verse 26.
And so all Israel will be saved, as it is written. The deliverer will come out of Zion, and he will turn away the ungodliness from Jacob.
Again, whenever he says Jacob, that means the unbelieving Jews. So the deliverer is going to come out of Zion, and he's going to turn away ungodly. So they will finally see the Savior that they've been waiting for. They think he hasn't come yet. We as Christians believe he came once, he's coming again. But they've been waiting for this millennial kingdom to show up. They've been waiting for this. So they don't believe Jesus. If you talk to them, they go, yeah, everything Jesus said was good. But when he came, there's been no kingdom. So that couldn't have been the Messiah. Because when the Messiah comes, the kingdom's going to come. So they're right. The Messiah's going to come and the kingdom's going to come. But they're missing all these 2,000 years where they could have been, sharing in the kingdom that's here in an invisible way. But literally, Jerusalem will come down and Christ is going to reign. And then they'll go, oh, okay, this is what we've been waiting for. So he's just put them on pause while the Gentiles are getting saved. So that's the second mystery. Here's 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 51.
Behold, I tell you a mystery. We shall not all sleep, but we shall all be changed. In a moment, in a twinkling of an eye, at the last trumpet. For the trumpet will sound, and the dead will be raised incorruptible, and we shall be changed.
Right. So here's another. Guess what? So they had a whole different idea about the resurrection. They didn't really understand the resurrection. They just thought you live on earth and if you're as good as you are, God will bless you while you're in the earth. And that's the goal, is to be a good enough person so that while you're on the earth, you get blessed. And then you die, and that's it. And that's why they were sure the poor people, they must not be doing right. Because they believe, and so do people today, that this is it. This is all there is. So you need to, you only live once, so get what you can while you're here. And then after that, there's nothing else. So you can look at people who obviously must be doing right because they are blessed, and then the people, they obviously must be doing wrong because look how poor they are. We still believe that today. We look at rich people and somehow they must be doing everything right. And we look at poor people and, well, they must have messed up. Jesus shocked everybody and said, no, blessed are the poor in spirit, because they're going to see God, and blessed are those who mourn, because they'll be comforted. And blessed, like, what's he talking about? He actually turned it on them and said, no, but you can't judge people by what you see right now, as far as what attorney is going to provide for them. So you may have it good right now, but you may end up in hell, and you may have it terrible right now, but you'll spend eternity in heaven. That's why he told the parable about Lazarus. There was a poor man, there was a rich man there was a poor man named Lazarus who would just try to get a little, crumb. But when they died, the rich man went to hell, and Lazarus went to heaven. And Lazarus said, hey, go warn my brothers and sisters. And it was just like, no. The rich man said that. I'm sorry. The rich man said, "Warn my brothers and sisters, Lazarus." And Abraham said, "No, they've already got the law and the prophet. I've already said everything that I'm going to say." He does that to us too. God doesn't. I've already told you what to do. I've already told you how to change. I've already told you. He doesn't come. He's not going to say the second time. He's just waiting for you to figure it out. But he doesn't come to you again in some. So 2 years ago we had that experience, or 3 years ago, and you heard God talk to you, and He said, "You got to change your life." He means it. He's not gonna say, "Oh well, I know that was 3 years ago, but I'm changing." No. I've said it, that's it, and everything that happens to you from then on is a result of you not believing what I said to you 5 years ago. Not believing what I said to you 10 years ago. When you thought you heard me say your life has to change, I meant it, and I'm not going to help you until you do what I told you to do. He just doesn't change. So he says, no, they've got Moses and the prophets. If they're not listening to them, that's it. But don't think that because Lazarus was poor here, that he's going to end up in hell. It's actually the opposite. I'm looking for changed hearts. So we still look the same way. We still look at people and judge them according to how they look now. Now, I was reminded how interesting, because I just was with a friend of mine who, so it's weird to me, because I have so many friends who are wealthy, and I'm like barely holding on. But they just tell these stories, but they, oh my goodness. So while I was at lunch, this friend always takes me, he pays because he's been paying for 20 years. He knows I'm poor. So we took me out to lunch again. They're about to go on they just bought a boat. They're about to sail for a year around the world and all this stuff. But while we're talking, he gets a message about his son who had tried to kill himself. And he got a message to the daughter who hates them and not talking to them. And then he's answering back, okay, if he doesn't get off the drugs, we're not paying for his therapy anymore. And blah, blah, blah. And I'm thinking, wow. So they got all this money and that's not, and they're all this horror in their lives. So money, we think, ooh, I just had money. Your life will still be this. If you're a mess, your life is going to be used to be a rich mess. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Money doesn't solve everything. It's not really thinking, wow, they have so much money and so much bad stuff going on. Yeah. Not because they're evil or anything like that, but money doesn't change anything. You got to have it together, whether you're rich or poor or whatever. You got to just have it together. Money won't. You can live in a big mansion and be ready to kill yourself. This son, I'm so mad at him because he's just had everything handed to him.
That's the one that has the trailer in the back.
Right, it's the one that they kicked him out of his house by buying him a mobile home. We kicked him out and said, you live in that mobile home we just bought for you.
Wow.
Which he just sold for $18,000. And so
The son did?
yes, he sold it. So he had $18,000 in the bank. So the therapists are like mad at them, like, how's he ever gonna learn? Well, we didn't know you'd do that. Well, so they're the one telling him if he does drugs, we're not gonna pay for his therapy. Anyway, but so I'm just saying, so all that money does not help. They have the same problem. You know what I mean? So we think, oh, money's the answer, and it's not. But that's how they believed at the time. If you're rich, that means God loves you, and if you're poor, but sometimes money can be a curse.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's good not to have anything, because you can keep your eye on God that way and not be caught up, So Jesus came with a whole new philosophy, and he had to change that, because God is looking on the heart. So he's saying in 1 Corinthians, so here's a new mystery. We shall not all sleep. We're going to be changed. You think that this is all there is. That's why you live how you do. And that's how the world lives how they do, because you think this is it. But guess what? Here's a new thing. All the dead are going to rise at some point. The dead in Christ are going to rise in the twinkling. There'll be a trumpet sound, and we're going to rise up incorruptible in bodies that will never see corruption again. And we'll be with Christ. And then the other dead, you're going to rise too. Surprise. And you're going to stand before the great white throne judgment, and you'll go off into the lake of fire. So that's a mystery that people don't understand, that this is a new thing that Jesus is introducing. This is not all there is. And so you better live accordingly. Okay, so those are the three mysteries, main mysteries in the New Testament. Gentiles get to have everything the Jews have. The Jews are going to stay blind until the fullness of the Gentiles come in, and then we're all going to be resurrected. Now, so Matthew chapter 13, he says, so I speak to them in parables because I want this to remain a mystery to them. Here's why, verse 12 and 15.
For whoever has, to him more will be given, and he will have abundance. But whoever does not have, even what he has will be taken away from him.
What do you think he's talking about? Whoever has is what?
Understanding.
Understanding, yes, that's certainly it. Whoever has faith, whoever has understanding and really gets me, you're going to get more. And whoever believes in me and trusts me, you're going to get more understanding, get more of me. He's not saying whoever has money will get more money. Whoever chooses to listen to my voice and says, you know what, I want more of God, you'll get more. But those who have no desire to know me, even when the little bit you know is going to be taken away. There's not a middle ground. You're either getting better or you're getting worse.
Wow.
That's just true, period. Okay, so we move to verse 13.
Therefore I speak to them in parables, because seeing they do not see, and hearing they do not hear, nor do they understand.
So I speak to them in parables. I speak to them in mysteries because they don't get it. I don't want to waste my breath. I give them the word. But when I say God can heal you, and they, well, you got to know. Okay, so now I'm going to speak to them in parables. So he's saying I'm changing my tactic here, because I've just spent all this time explaining stuff to them. That blind man saw, I raised a person from the dead, and then they're telling me that it's the devil. So seeing, they still don't see. Because we see what we want to see, we hear what we want to hear. We already have our minds made up. I like this person, so everything they say is wonderful. I hate this person, so everything they say is the devil. We don't really see what's really there, we see what we want to see. So they've already decided Jesus was the devil, so it doesn't matter what he did. You do that because it's the devil. So seeing, they don't see. Hear, they don't really hear. So I speak to them in mysteries. I'm giving them these truths, but on purpose, I'm couching them from them because they really don't want it. They'll never be able to say I didn't tell them, but I don't want to waste my breath in an argument. So I'm going to give them the same truth as a mystery. God doesn't want to argue with us, so he tells us things in a mystery. Because if he told us, sell your car and go over there, I'm not going to sell my car, we'd argue. So he says, something's going to happen with your car. Ooh, I can't wait. And then eventually we have to sell it. He says it so that we'll keep cooperating. He gives it to us in a mystery because he doesn't even want us to argue with him and resist. So there are people that, because one of my closest friends is this kid that I really hated when I was teaching. The real teacher got sick, so I had to come in and substitute. And this kid was the first one to stand up and say, this is never going to work. You suck. Well, this person ended up being my best friend. But had God told me, go for it now, I would have, So.
Ananias took Paul. I don't know.
Listen, so God, he says things to us in a mystery so that we'll keep doing what he tricks us. Then later we go, oh, that's what he meant. Because we wouldn't have done it had he told us what really was about to happen. You can look back at a lot of stuff and God had told you in advance that was going to happen. You said, I'm not going through there.
Right.
So he tricks you into it. Now afterwards, you can see, oh, look what I got from that. I'm really glad I went through that. But if he told you beforehand, you wouldn't have gone through it, right? That's going to hurt too much. But afterwards, okay, that was good. So he tricks us into it. I'm just going to say to you in a mystery, God said. So I'm telling it to them in a mystery because I don't want the argument anymore. that I've gone through. So I'm just going to speak in parables. So when they hear it, they go, yeah, sower sows, and that's true. Some seed falls on bad ground. They don't know Jesus is talking about them. So they're getting the truth, but he's tired of the argument. That's why I said Jesus now has an attitude. Okay, I'm done. I'm going to speak in parables so that I can keep speaking without being challenged every 30 seconds. He does the same thing to us.
So Douglas.
Yes, sir.
So when you told the parable about the seeds, the ones that did not want to hear just left it right at the parable, but his disciples went to him. What does that mean? So they were seeking more, so he gave them more?
Yes, if you really want the truth, then you'll get more. If you don't really want to hear it, I'm not going to waste my time giving you these. I'm going to give you the truth as a parable and a mystery. So you'll hear it and go, yes, I agree. And then you'll leave Jesus alone. But the people are going to, wait, what does this mean? Yeah, so when we dig deeper in the Word, what does that mean and how? He loves that. But a lot of people just, if you don't want more,
You just say, okay.
yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, worship in the spirit and truth.
Right.
Okay. But somebody says, but what does it mean to worship him in spirit? So it's people who, then more will be given. But people who just like, they really never wanted more. So he says things in that way so that they'll go, okay, and go on with it. But they can't say they haven't heard. It's their fault they didn't dig deeper. So that's why I speak in parables. Verse 14.
And in them the prophecy of Isaiah is fulfilled, which says, hearing you will hear and shall not understand, and seeing you will see and not perceive. For the hearts of this people have grown dull, their ears are hard of hearing, and their eyes they have closed, lest they should see with their eyes and hear with their ears, lest they should understand with their hearts and turn, so that I should heal them.
Right, they've heard it so much that their ears are now becoming dull. They just hear, because they never really wanted to hear. So the people that were saying, you should, they don't want to hear that. So you can talk all day long. And then it becomes the Charlie Brown's teacher. That's all they hear.
Right.
So you're really waiting, okay, you're talking to me, but I don't hear what you're saying, because I never wanted to. But people who I really want to get better. I really want to learn. I really want to change. God will give that person more. So their ears have just become dull, and they don't really hear what I'm saying anymore. So I'm doing this, he said, but here's why he's fair. He does the same thing. He says the same thing to everybody. The person who wants to hear is the wax that he knows. The person who doesn't want to hear is the clay that hardens. But the Son does the same thing. So yes, the Son hardened that clay, but that's because the clay decided to be clay. God doesn't decide in advance for us. We make the choice. And then from then on, we either keep melting with the Son or we keep hardening. But he never changed. He says that in John chapter 12, verse 40 to 41.
He has blinded their eyes and hardened their hearts, lest they should see with their eyes, lest they should understand with their hearts and turn, so that I should kill them. These things Isaiah said when he saw his glory and spoke of him.
So when Isaiah saw the Son, wow! But some people had blinded them. Some people had healed them. So the Son, you know how, like I was just saying, we push people, go stand out in the sun, because it'll heal you. But other people, it blinds them. But it's their choice. It's their choice. So when Isaiah saw the glory, God's glory, he says, wow, that should heal you. But it's really blinding them. Because of their attitude. Their attitude. So finally, Matthew chapter 13, verse 12 through 16. I mean, it's just 16 through 17, sorry.
But blessed are your eyes, for they see, and your ears, for they hear. For assuredly I say to you that many prophets and righteous men desire to see what you see, and did not see it, and to hear what you hear, and did not hear it.
Right. So, your eyes are blessed because you really want the truth. Because a lot of people wanted it. And here, there's some, and it's also the time that you're living in. He's saying you're lucky that you live in this time period. Because there are prophets who wanted to understand this. But you get to understand it. You're the ones that God has chosen. So God always has something for that generation, for that time period. He reveals something to them, specific to them that they can use for that time period. And then if you're lucky enough to live in the next time period, you get that next revelation. So you see, you're lucky disciples, you live in the right time, you are hearing, things and understanding things that people wish they could have understood. Yes,
Is
ma'am.
that what this is kind of in the same place as you now have a reprobate mind because you just don't want to listen, now you want to do your own thing?
Yes, your conscience has been seared.
Yeah?
Yeah, and that happens with it. You know, you just become numb to something
Yeah.
because,
You start believing what you want to believe.
right. So God lets you. He turns you into a reprobate mind. I'll let you believe whatever you want then. You get to go do your thing. And that's what you really want to do. So I'm no longer going to stop you. And either it will totally destroy you, or you'll finally find yourself eating with the pigs and go, what the heck am I doing when you'll come back? But I'm no longer going to stop you. And we have to do that sometimes. Let that person go ahead and fail. Let them go. It's okay. If they really want the truth, they'll eventually realize, I'm in a bunch of mess here. I need to change. If they don't want the truth, you can't force feed them. So it's okay. But sometimes the best thing we can do is to let them go ahead and end up in a mess. The quicker we let them end up in a mess, the quicker they'll turn around. Stop rescuing people from themselves. Let them fail. It's okay. They'll turn around. You good? Okay, let's bow our heads.